We're on Washington Watch addressing the dilemma with Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. He serves on the Budget and Appropriation Committee. Senator, it's great to see you. Is anyone, just what we were talking about off camera, you don't want to extend the payroll tax cut?
I take a slightly different perspective. You know, when I started our business back in '79, we immediately, even for a small business, instituted a 401k plan because I didn't believe Social Security was going to be there for people.
Yeah.
And so it was always tied to profitability, but even when our profits went down, we did everything possible to maintain our contribution to the retirement fund. And I know we call it a payroll tax, but
Yeah.
I've always viewed that payroll tax as a contribution to the retirement fund. And I don't know why we would want to starve that. Let's face it, we've got an $18.7 trillion unfunded liability for Social Security. Now, we reduced those payroll taxes this year. It was supposed to boost the economy, create jobs. It wasn't particularly effective. We starved the Social Security fund by $112 billion this year. Why do we want to keep going? Why do we want to keep doing that?
Don't we, every time we do that, don't we, they pay for it some other way, though, don't they?
No, what do they ever pay for?
Right.
Well, they talk about.
They're going to do with the surtax on millionaires, right?
Yeah. How long would it, first of all, is that going to create economic growth?
Well, I don't know.
I mean,
but
again,
I thought they were. They do pay. The last one they paid for, didn't they? Somehow, when we did it.
I'm not aware of it.
It was just a nut.
All these pay-fors are always sometime in the future. Well, we'll cut spending 10 years out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're talking about, the whole debt ceiling agreement. We'll cut spending by $917 billion in like 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20.
So you think it's like wimpy? Like, I will gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today?
I mean, listen.
What's the impact if you don't do it?
If we don't do it?
Yeah.
Well, so, okay. I would think probably liberal economists would say, well, you're going to starve the economy of $112 trillion, but you're basically taking $112 trillion out of one pocket and putting into another. So to me, that's a zero-sum game.
The people that benefit from this, that $1,000, and that's the argument, that has a better chance of going back into demand into the general economy.
I mean, Bush tried that. We've tried this a number of different times.
Although it pays off credit card debt sometimes, too.
Listen, the metrics I'm looking at, and I think there are just a couple that we should be, on a macro basis. We should be looking at debt to GDP ratio, which is going the wrong direction. And truthfully, I think we should be looking at the size of government in relationship to GDP. We've hit 25%, we're about 24% right now. That's just not a very good metric. Right. And so the way you manage both of those ratios is you have three numbers, the size of government, the size of your debt, and the size of GDP. So I would argue the best way to manage all those is increase GDP, increase the size of your economy. So I don't want to do anything that's going to harm economic growth. Now, again, you can say, well...
That's exactly the argument that the president has put forth, is that you will harm economic growth if you don't extend these payroll tax cuts.
I'm saying...
But we've tried it. It didn't work.
Okay, so you take them off. What is your expectation? What is the hit that the economy takes in the short term as a result of taking the tax cuts off?
I think the hit the economy takes is, and what is preventing all these trillions of dollars that are sitting on the sidelines from actually being employed, is the fear over our debt and deficit. So I think we first need to address that. I mean, the fear that these entitlement programs aren't being addressed, that they're insolvent, that they're unsustainable. I mean, we are already cash negative in Social Security. I mean, it's a fiction that Social Security is sound.
Companies aren't spending money now because they're worried about the deficit?
Yeah. The debt and deficit, and what does that imply? I mean, how are taxes going to have to increase in the future?
I agree with.
Or how does the government inflate their way out of this debt? Yeah, that's a real fear. In combination with the incredible regulatory burden that we're placing on job creators as well. I mean, we have, George Will just wrote the column, and I've been talking about the $1.75 trillion in regulatory costs. That was in 2008. Since that figure, we've passed 11,000 new rules and regulations. I mean, we are burdening job creators unbelievably with regulations. So you combine all of those things, and that's what's causing the economy.
I'm not going to dissuade you on the regulatory front, but on this issue of the payroll tax cuts, what do you really think happens to the economy in the short term?
Listen, my concern about
all of those issues.
My take on the payroll cut is we're already facing a Social Security system that is not solvent, that is not sustainable long term. Why do we want to starve that? For a short-term economic boost, potentially, that we've tried in the past, it doesn't particularly work.
Okay, but are you prepared
do you think...
I'm not going to disagree with you.
Do you think it worked this year? Why would it work next year?
My question to you is, are you prepared to tell your constituents, which you must be,
absolutely,
that unemployment will go to what?
I have no idea. Listen, you have to manage the big macro numbers. And again, that is, from my standpoint, the number one component of a solution is economic growth. So you don't want to do anything to harm that. And that's why tax increases. How do the Democrats want to pay for this? They want to tax millionaires. Well, what are millionaires? Out of over almost 400,000 returns that show incomes of over $1 million, 80% of that shows business income. So you are taxing small to medium-sized business people that actually create the jobs in this country. Why would you want to do that? So I ask people that support a tax increase to ask themselves a very simple question. How many jobs will that tax increase create?
But Senator,
how will that help
my
the
question.
economy to grow?
I understand your point about not wanting to raid Social Security and making sure that we have the money there for it. But when you say that you don't want to hurt the economy by raising taxes, it's a secular logic. Okay, if you don't want to hurt the economy by raising taxes on the rich, then you probably wouldn't want to hurt the economy by raising taxes on somebody who's making $50,000.
So are we going to structurally put in, a 3% rate of payroll tax for Social Security? Mm-hmm. I mean, is that a good thing to do? Remember, this was
all tax rates.
This was supposed.
But the Bush tax rates are supposed to go away too. So you can argue that all these tax rates are temporary tax rates that will change.
But understand, I view the payroll tax really as a contribution to a retirement fund, as opposed to a tax. Now, if we want to start calling it a tax, if we want to start saying that Social Security really is welfare, it's really not funded. And it isn't.
Okay, let's call it what it is.
That's kind of the direction we're going to, isn't it?
But it was supposed to be an insurance payment,
we are starting to blow the myth that there really is a trust fund, and there isn't. I mean, it's the government holds these bonds, government bonds, which really isn't a real asset to the United States or to the government. So if you want to start going down that path and saying that these contributions that people are making through the payroll really aren't going to fund their retirement, and they're really not.
But it was originally set up as an insurance plan, not as, a retirement plan.
When the life expectancy was 62,
right,
and the retirement was set at 65, I mean, there's an entitlement program that works. But now, life expectancy is 78, 79. Right. It doesn't work.
Where do you think the country comes down on this? Because the Senate, or the Obama administration and Democrats don't do anything that they haven't thought about in terms of how it's going to play out next November. Okay, so you've got this payroll thing. I think the public's going to be on their side with this. I mean, who doesn't want to keep payroll taxes low? They also probably...
I know. I understand the politics
obviously,
of it.
they think that a tax increase on millionaires is also... They're really keen on that. Then you're from Wisconsin. You see I don't know whether Governor Walker went too far or not, but we saw what happened in Ohio. But the Democrats are starting to see a glimmer of a pullback from 2010. How far... And look at Gingrich, too.
Yeah, and do you know where we're bankrupting this nation? Is because people play politics this way. Because people always calculate, well, how's this going to play back in my election? The only guarantee I made in my election was I would never vote with my reelection in mind. That's it. I mean, I came here because we're bankrupting this nation, and we are. I mean, $15 trillion worth of debt, equal to the size of our economy.
You want to revisit Simpson Bowles. Are you okay with the, what was it, 3-1, 4-1?
No, what I said, and I introduced a bill that just enacts the things people agreed on. I realized the tax reform was controversial. I realized the entitlement reform was controversial. Well, in the middle, they had some common sense reductions in discretionary spending. Let's enact that. Mm-hmm. That'd save us $655 billion. Nowhere near enough, not even close.
Yeah.
I mean, we aren't even beginning to acknowledge the problem. I've been on here in the past talking about the true cost of Obamacare. That's going to be costing trillions of dollars in the next 10 years. It's not being acknowledged right now because CBO estimates are so grotesquely understated. So we're simply not facing up to this problem. And a short-term decrease in the payroll tax is simply making Social Security less sustainable long-term. I think it's very bad fiscal policy.
Real quickly, though, you say that you are not concerned about your next election, but do you think that's true of your Republican colleagues? Because it does sound like a deal is going to get accomplished on this.
That's part of the problem in Washington is there are far too many people there that are concerned about the next election as opposed to what is the right thing to do for this country.
This is classic.
It's sad. I mean, I wish I had better news to report.
Yeah.
This is classic. This person is mad. Instead of being sad about the Giants' loss, why aren't I celebrating the Packers' no-loss season? It's like the people have fans, huh? You think this is a really good? Okay,
well,
I'm
let's
sorry.
face it. Green Bay Packers are America's team.
Okay,
right?
I'm
Correct?
sorry.
I mean, what a wonderful.
How
thing.
could I, living in New York? How could I, having been at the game? How could I be sad that and just not?
I am happy for Aaron Rodgers.
You had to think that was pretty good.
Do you know what?
I am happy for Aaron Rodgers.
Pulling out there.
You know what? There were a lot of
seconds.
Wisconsin fans, a lot of Green Bay fans there. You look ridiculous in the cheese heads. You do. You look ridiculous. You've got cheese on your head.
I don't wear one.
It's all like bizarre.
Hey, but the green and gold looks pretty sharp.
The what?
The green and gold looks pretty sharp, right?
It does.
Come on.
It was
Aaron
painful.
Rodgers, Green Bay Packers repeat.
Yeah,
That's a good American story.
I'm okay for Aaron
I mean,
Rodgers.
Green
like
Bay
him.
Packers owned by the city of Green Bay, small market
But the
team.
Jets are the Giants. You have to.
But he's not Brett Favre, so I like him for that reason.
And why do you not like Brett Favre? Because of the cheerleader?
No, because of the
Wrangler commercials?
Yeah.
The picture.
picture.
trouble.
That
You
is
don't
with
like,
the
you don't
cheerleader.
like Anthony Weiner either.
not so much.
Thank you. All right. Then you don't like Jason Segel.
I didn't see the movie.
Well, don't see it. And don't see the Muppet movie because anyway. Thanks to Senator Ron Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Good to have you on again. When you're back, we're gonna have Schumer on later. He's probably, if he's watching, he's probably doing backflips at this point. Not backflips, but he'll have some. He may have a different
Ask
opinion.
him why he wants to bankrupt Social Security. Why does he want to do that? There you
Andrew,
go.
will you do that?
I'll ask it exactly that way, too.
Why are you for bankrupting Social Security?
Well, you know what? Keep that on tape. We'll play it later in the show.